All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out. My name is Amy Alvey. I'm your Oldham County Clerk. I've been in office a little over a year, so this will be my third election that I have been the administrator for. So just a few housekeeping rules. Obviously, exits are at the back. In case of emergency, there is a exit to the right of the back of the courtroom that takes you to a stairwell. There's also an exit over here to the left. And again, in case of emergency. If you have a cell phone, just please be sure to put it on silent. And if you need to take a phone call, just step outside of the courtroom and just come back in. No worries on that. So before we get started, we're going to stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, guys. It's Ken Jones. All right. I'll go ahead and introduce staff. This is Tabitha Wynn. She is the brains of the election side. She's been 25 years now. With the county clerk's office. So she is our resident expert on everything to do with elections. Even though it is an ever-changing document, as most of you know, with laws and equipment, I don't know what I'd do without Tab. Michael will be here at the evening session. He couldn't make it this morning. To the left of Tabitha is Ross Robertson with Harp Enterprises. He is our vendor that does, it's going to do our training today as well. Anyone that's in the back, we're going to try and capture as much as we can with our equipment. This is being recorded, and then I will send a link out to everyone. It'll be on YouTube, so we'll send a link out. So if anybody wants a refresher course on it before Election Day or early voting, you're more than welcome to click on that link and watch it. But we're going to try and put as much as we can up on this screen. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and call roll. We're gonna do it by location. I'm not gonna do early voting because the majority of the people on early voting are also working Election Day as well. So when I call your name, if you will just stand, that way people will know who they're working with that day. So we'll start off with North Oldham High School. Greg Cobb. Jane Davis. Get my pencil to work here. Good thing I brought another one. Alicia Gillespie. Paula Gish. Sharika Kalrani. Is Miss Kalrani? She's not here. Okay. Michael Kuntz. Thank you. Melissa Goody. Thank you. Kelly Park. Linda Probus. Thank you. Laura Tapp. Frank Stewart. Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Rick Wise. Glenn Gish. Audrey McBride. And Diana Hunsinger. Okay, so that's North Oldham High School. Goshen Elementary location. This is a change. Previously, we were at Sojourn Church, so we had moved to Goshen Elementary just to try to pick up more on the county line, and plus everything from the subdivisions areas in that location. So, and I think it'll work out well since it was a previous voting location as well. So, Ari Courtney, yeah, Juanita Gladwell, Deidre Weber. Joseph Taylor, Brenda Likens, David Likens, Linda Murphy, Leslie Whitaker, Tony Garner, Charles Gladwell, thank you, Dave Whitney, and Carolyn Garner. Okay, that is Goshen Elementary. East Oldham Middle School, Tina Melcher, I see Izzy in the back. I'm not going to try and get that middle last name there. Jennifer Westerfall. Damon Hughes. Zach Cravens. Kristen Anderson. Tom McGraw. Let's see Tom here. Philip Campbell. Thomas Pike. Thank you. And Larry Riley. Thank you, Mr. Riley. Next is Oldham County High School. Charcy Bullard. Still couldn't get Wallace to come with you, Charcy? Daggone. Eugene McBride. Yeah. Lynn Garner. Jan Jasper. Linda Mattingly. Timothy McDivitt. Did I say that correctly? Thank you. John Nelson. Thank you, sir. Betty Patterson. Elaine Stringer. Denise Watts Wilson. Milton Littles. There's Milton. Jim Urban. Scott Curtis. Marvin Collins. There's Marvin. Bob McBeath. Thank you. Next is LaGrange Baptist Church. Jackie Harrington. Yes, ma'am. Susanna Hernandez. Yes, ma'am. Sandra Horn. Yes, ma'am. Josephine Giacovino. Nancy Joe here. Angela Smith. Lisa Seifert. I have recruited my sister last election. Now I've got my sister-in-law this election. So I'm working on them. No, she now we have my sister-in-law too. So we got them. Gary Jones. Susan Bissig. Yes, ma'am. Dave Holtz. Pam Holtz. Michael Carlton. Leslie Huber. Leslie here. Trey Kamer. Trey reluctantly came back, but sweet talked him a little bit. Tom Hicks. And Phyllis Lee. Good to see you, Phyllis. You're looking good. Westport Baptist. Vicki Grace. I saw Vicki. Candace McMahon. Deanne Patton. Megan Patton. Charles Staley. There's Mr. Staley. Rosalind Streeter. Ken Jones. Always in the back row. And Ricky Creel. There's Mr. Creel. All right. South Oldham Middle School. Will Blackwell. Thank you. Zach Gender. Was Zach here? No, okay. I'm going to check. Connie Knight. There's Connie. Martha Hamilton. Lee Hamilton. Ashley Meredith. Wes Sischler. David Thompson. Arlene Torrens. Amy Wellborn. Thank you. Teresa Cheatham. Patrick Wellborn. Thank you. Gary's not here. Larry Mason. Okay. Crestwood Baptist Church. Lauren Bearden. Peter Flanagan. Charlonda Gray. Jennifer Hignight. Lisa Kratt. Thank you. Robert Kratt. Kevin Warlow. Thank you. Rory Whitaker. Steve Compton. Michael Gray. Michael Duncan. Rose Compton. Okay, Pewee Valley Fire. Phyllis Cousins. Kirk Graves. Thank you. Kelly Slayton. Jean Clark, Stephanie Prost, JD Donner, Tim's not here, Tim Vanderhoof, Jerry Nart, Karen Borst. Thank you. And that is it. All right. With that being said, the next thing we'll do is I will swear everyone in. So unfortunately, you stood up for the pledge, you stood up for a roll call. You got to stand one more time. Sorry. All right. If everyone raise their right hand, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the Commonwealth and be faithful and true to the Commonwealth of Kentucky, so long as you continue thereof, and that you will faithfully execute to the best of your ability the office of Precinct Election Worker according to law? And do you further solemnly swear that since the adoption of the present Constitution, you, being a citizen of the state, have not fought a duel with deadly weapons within the state, nor out of it, nor have you sent or accepted a challenge to fight a duel with deadly weapons, nor have you acted as a second in carrying a challenge, or aided or assisted any person thus offending, so help you God? Thank you. Okay, you don't have to get up again. I feel like we're Catholic again. Stand up, sit down. All right, so next what I'll do is I will go over, just so everyone's aware of your voting options. Everyone, if you have not received a card, hopefully you'll get the card in the next few days in the mail. This went out to every household in Oldham County. It outlines the voting opportunities. Number one on the card is just legal absentee ballots. So most of you, obviously, if you're working election day, you will not need an absentee ballot because you can vote at your voting center the day of the election. No excuse voting. Anyone can come and vote those 3 days. That is at the John Black Center. That is Thursday, November 2nd from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Friday, November 3rd from 8 to 4, and Saturday, November 4th from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then again, obviously, you can come early voting and vote one of those days, or you can vote on election day at your voting center. So you have those opportunities. I also sent out, you have training today that you will get paid for. Anybody that is a clerk or wants to learn more about the clerk role, we will have additional training at the John Black Center on October 18th, which is a Wednesday, or October 19th, which is a Thursday. There's 3 sessions per day. We will have the center set up what it will look like when you walk in on election day. So it'll have the table, it'll have the printer set up. So when you walk in on election day, this is going to be a mock of what you're going to see. It's going to show you how to unpack the iPads, how to turn the iPads on, or the e-poll books on, how to turn your printers on, unlock those, run the reports, check in voters, how you spoil a ballot, and then again at the end of day, what your closing responsibilities will be, how you shut down the iPads, how you shut down the printers, and how all of those go back in the cage. That is optional. It's not mandatory. It's not required. But if you are interested in doing that, some people have replied back to the email, but I did bring the sign-in sheet here. You can sign up under the appropriate days. On Wednesday, it'll be from 10 a.m. to noon, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., and 5 to 7 p.m. On Thursday, the 19th, it is from 9 to 11 a.m., 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., or 4 to 6 p.m. So before you leave today, if you do want to sign up for that additional training, you will get paid the same $25 that you get for today. And we'll obviously have a sign-in sheet there as well. So if you want to come to that additional training, if you can't come to that additional training and you want to stop by early voting and see it in action, if you've never been a clerk before, a judge, or a sheriff, you're more than welcome to stop by any of those 3 days and kind of shadow those people as well. So if you can't make the early or the additional training that's specifically for the clerks, you're more than welcome to stop by early voting as well. Currently, as of today, we have sent out 320 absentee ballots. So that might be a good sign of what our turnout is going to be. Only 11 have been returned. The portal opened on September 23rd and it will close on October 24th. So again, we've already sent out 320 absentee ballots. On election day, you need to be at your voting center no later than 45 minutes before the polls open. So you need to be at your voting center by 5:15 a.m. If you run into issues or have problems, I'll send up follow-up emails closer to election day and stuff. I'll put my cell number on there. You're more than welcome to give me a call, or if something comes up in the days leading to election day and you can't work election day because of a health issue, or you have to go out of town for a health, whatever it is, family comes first. So, again, you can call the office during office hours, or you can call or text me anytime, because I'll have to find someone to be able to fill that position or rearrange people. You have to be at the voting center all day. It is a very long day, so be sure you bring a lunch, bring some snacks, bring a magazine to read, bring an iPad to check Facebook out or TikTok or whatever your passion is. Bring that, and it'll give you something to do. Be sure when you came in, you have 3 manuals that you were given. The first one is the State Board of Elections training guide. That is your training guide that goes over all the different roles and the laws. The next one is the machine guide that explains how to open and close the machines. And the third one is the poll pad training manual that talks about how to check voters in, supplemental ballots, all of that stuff. So be sure that you bring all of these with you on the day that you're scheduled to work. Each worker, you will get a name tag. You'll get this cute little lanyard here. You'll fill out, put your name on it. When you pick this up, you'll also pick up, I've created, we had these last time, and I'm not sure how much they were used, but we need to make sure that we do use them. There's a checkoff sheet that is based off of what your role is. So when you pick up your name tag, you're going to grab your checkoff sheet. It's going to tell you, have checkoffs of what you need to do in the morning, things to do during the day, and then your closing procedures. So it'll have that. It also will have a quick reference guide. So on the quick reference guide, this is an example of the clerks. It talks about, it's a quick reference guide of the different allowable forms of identification. It also tells you on a quick reference guide how to do a supplemental ballot, how to do a spoiled ballot, the examples of the forms, things of that nature. You'll have that with you, and you'll just check off when you've done the things, sign it at the bottom. But again, we'll go over all of that in detail at the clerk additional training. We have one for the judges. Judges is the same way. You know, it goes through, talks about, you know, how you set up for the day, what your role is during the day, and then your evening closeout. Sheriff is the same way. Checkoff sheet talks about different things. It has a quick reference guide of what is considered electioneering. So if you have a question, rather than having to dig your book out and find the page, it's a quick reference guide that you can quickly go to make sure that someone is not electioneering within the required setbacks on there. If you're a sheriff, and some locations will ask you to put out additional cones for handicap parking, you'll have a map on here, and it's in your checkoff sheet for the morning. It'll say check to see if you have a map in your packet to put out additional cones for ADA parking, because some places don't have a whole lot of ADA parking, so we have cones that are marked ADA on there. Let's see. Yes, sir.
Are those changed since the ones that you issued in May?
No.
Okay.
No. The only changes is there's an update between the judge and the clerks, because the clerks are going to open the printers, so their information tells them to open the printers, and the judges, it's been removed. So, but other than that, it's really the same thing. We will have a staff liaison person at each location again. They are not election experts. They are motor vehicle clerks. 90% of them are motor vehicle clerks. So that is their expertise. If you run into an issue, they probably won't have the answer, but they are going to be the contact person for you to go to and have them call the office. That will streamline our phone calls. And hopefully if one person has an issue and they have to call the office to get the answer, and the next person has that same issue, they'll be able to answer it rather than us getting another phone call. We don't mind getting calls from you guys, but it's a lot easier if we get phone calls from one person at each location. Yes, ma'am. Yes. You'll have one printer for each. There'll be 2 clerks, 1 printer. If we get additional funding in the future, we may be able to buy additional printers, but those printers are about $5,000 a piece because they're more than just a printer. They have a brain in them as well to print the ballots. So if we get additional funding through the state, that'll be part of our first purchase is to get more printers. The other issue with having more printers is they put such a draw on the electrical systems and the circuits. Ross can speak to that. You can't have more than 3 on one circuit. Otherwise, it's going to blow the breaker. So in smaller locations where we don't have as many or the ability to have that many, it's not a problem. But if like at the high school or something like that, it could cause an issue. So again, the liaison is there for us here back in the office. They are there to help you. If you have issues, you go to the liaison, they'll call us. So at this point, Ross is going to go over a lot of information. Again, we're going to try and put as much as up on the screen as we can. Give him your undivided attention. He's got a mic this year, so hopefully everyone will be able to hear him. Try and hold your questions unless it's just really, really pressing. Hold it to the end because most likely he's going to cover it and answer your question. But if you have to know the answer right now, raise your hand and he'll give you a call. But this is Ross Robertson with Harp Enterprises.
Thanks, Amy. Can everybody hear me okay? I've got a lot of stuff I got to go over, so let's fly through it. I'm going to start in this state poll worker guidebook. The good thing is when Amy went over all these little handouts for the judges, sheriffs, and clerks, it works out really well for me because that's usually the first part of this book. Actually, it's pages 1 through 28 of the book, telling responsibilities for each officer. So where I want to start is on page 29 in the book. 29 is the list of identifications that the state of Kentucky allows for voters to come in and be processed to vote. What's the most common form of ID? Driver's license. Most common form. I think it's up to like 86% right now. People knowing that an ID is used because it makes it really quick. You can scan the driver's license, the barcode on the back, it populates the information for the voter on the screen. Now, there are some issues, we know that. People move all the time, which we'll cover that in just a little bit. But for the most part, Kentucky driver's licenses are used. I do want to point out, and some people, not saying this county does, but there are misconceptions, out-of-state driver's license are allowed. Okay, if someone has an out-of-state driver's license, remember, you guys are not the police of voters, all right? We're not there to check, are they valid? Have they expired? You're there to make sure every voter has an opportunity to vote. If they have a out-of-state driver's license, if you were to look on number 8 down here, it says completing form SBE 71 and producing any ID card displaying the voter's name and photo, that's an out-of-state driver's license, okay? As long as they are a registered voter in your all's county voter registration system and they have an out-of-state driver's license they're using, that's acceptable. The same way if they had a social security card and they wanted to use it. Understand 6 through 11, any of those types of IDs, we have to have a form filled out, an SBE 71 for 6 through 10, and on number 11, remember the old days when we had personal acquaintance? Remember that? you could vouch that you knew somebody personally and then initial off on it, you can still do that. If someone was to come in and they know you and you know them and they don't have a form of ID on them, you can do it. But before that happens, you have to fill out SBE 72 form. And everything I cover as far as forms, there's samples in the book. I have them up here, but if I held them up, you would not see them, right? But the SBE 71 is a fairly long form. The SBE 72 form, there's two sections, one for the election officer, one for the voter. Your affidavit stating that you know each other. That's all it is, all right? Make sure those get filled out if you ever use that. All right, if you would, turn with me to page 30. If you are checking someone in on electronic poll book and you scan their driver's license or you manually look up and it pops up and on the screen it says absentee, are they allowed to vote in person? No. Once they have requested an absentee ballot, they have to use that absentee ballot to vote with, okay? Now, it does come into questions. I'm usually up here on election day. Hopefully I will be again. But I've watched so many people on election day come in with the envelope that was mailed to them for absentee and walk into the clerk's office and drop it inside that box that's in there where we can drop absentee envelopes in. If someone, and you're working election day, that happens and it says absentee voter on there, encourage them to go back home, fill it out, get all their proper documentation, envelopes and all that filled out properly. As long as they get it back and drop it in that mailbox inside the entrance of the clerk's office downstairs, before 6 p.m., their vote will count, okay? They most likely will not have time to put it in the mail and get it mailed the same day, right? Because we know how the post office works today. Can you ask that question again?
They're not allowed to put it in the box at our location, just here?
Just here, on election day, yes. Yeah, anything done, absentee is a mailed procedure, but back during COVID, they allowed for these drop boxes for the ballots. That is still used, even on election day, for absentee mail. Some people wish to do that in person instead of putting it in the mail, but that's still allowed. Now, if someone was doing early voting, if they want to take the chance Thursday, Friday, Saturday and put it in the mail and hope that it gets there before 6 p.m. on Monday, that's up to them. But you could encourage that, hey, if you want, fill it out and put it in that drop box. There are two exceptions to absentee personnel. Military is given exclusions to this process, especially military overseas voters. They request what's called a federal postcard application at the beginning of the year. Ballots are mailed to them during the primary and general automatically. If they're deployed at one location and they get redeployed to the other, they may miss that ballot. And maybe they're home on leave between deployments. If they're here in person to vote and it says absentee military voter on your screen, just call the clerk's office to make sure that they did not receive one already in the mail from them. And if they say they have not, then they're allowed to vote, okay? Military people stateside that's in here, if they want to vote and they've requested an absentee ballot, we still let them do the same thing. But they have to meet with the clerk and surrender their ballot to the clerk. And then on page 30, near the middle there, that's an authorization to vote in person that the clerk would fill out and give to that voter, and then they would show that or present it to you. So you know they have already seen the clerk. All right? Page 31. Do you all have any ACP participants? Okay. I can pretty much skip most of the page on 831. Down at the bottom, voter's name is different from that name on the electronic poll book. Does this happen? Somebody comes in, typically it's a female, they've either gotten married or divorced, they've changed their driver's license, but they have failed to change their voter registration with their new name. Now's the time to get that changed. So if you're scanning a driver's license, you always ask 2 questions, right? To every single voter, you ask, what's the first one? What's your name? That way they're confirming to you that their name matches what's on the electronic poll book. What's the second thing you ask? Address, to make sure they haven't moved and change of address. So let's say the name changes. If a name has changed and they tell you, hey, I just recently got married or divorced, you want to step them out of line. Usually we ask the sheriff to step somebody out of line to go get paperwork filled out. We have to have a new voter registration card filled out for this voter, okay? So we get them updated with a proper name for the next election. And once that paperwork's done, then we can step them back to the front of the line, process them, hand them their ballot, and let them go ahead and vote. Now, if somebody tells you that they have an address that is different from what you see on the electronic poll book, there's a series of things you have to do with that, with address changes. You have to call the clerk's office, right? Because when they change address, we want to confirm what precinct their new address puts them in, right? Why is the precinct important?
Local elections.
Do what?
Local election.
That is true. He said local elections, anything's happening local. But more importantly, a voter has to vote in the precinct where he or she lives. So if they've changed address, that could mean a new or different ballot style for them that has something different on it than what their previous ballot had. It could be the same, but we track precinct by precinct results, not county results. We track precinct by precinct. So we have to make sure we're handing the right ballot out to that voter. So, next thing, we confirm with the clerk what ballot style they get, what precinct they are. Then they have to fill out a voter a voter registration card, a new one, that has the new address information on it. Correct? Does this sound familiar? Yes. The third thing that has to be done, they have to fill out what's called an oath of voter form. All right? So those 3 things. Now, clerks, where's clerks that usually work poll pads? You're all familiar with this, right? Because now the old way of doing supplemental rosters, because anytime there's an address change or somebody wasn't found in the poll book and we're allowing them to vote, we had to do a supplemental roster, correct? Today on the electronic poll book, the supplementals are done electronically. So when you get to that step where you're going in to do electronic supplementals, it has a guide or a step in there with 3 steps in it that says, 1, did you call the clerk's office to confirm the address and ballot style? Yes. 2, did the voter fill out the new voter registration card? Yes, we did that. And the third thing is, did they fill out the oath of voter form? Yes. Once all of those checks are done, then you move to the next screen where you add the new address for that voter, the ballot style, and then, only then, after that's completed, then will it print a receipt out that has the right ballot style and new address for that voter. Otherwise, if you didn't do that on here, it would print out a ballot style and the old address. Then you're going to hand them the wrong ballot style, right? So that's the new process in today's world with the electronic poll book. Are there any questions on that? Okay. On page 33, right in the middle, these are important dates. I always encourage you to keep this book handy. Do you ever get situations where people move from one county and move into your county and they're trying to vote here? Is it important that they're registered in this county to vote? Yeah. What happens when people stand in front of you, they move from another county and they were registered there, If they failed to register in this county, they won't show up on your electronic poll book, right? You'll scan it, nothing pops up. You do a manual search, you can't find them. They may tell you, or you can ask, did you move? Or have you been a registered voter here? Well, I moved back in. It's important that you find out the date, because if they moved when the book or the registration books were closed, October the 11th through November the 13th, then they are allowed to vote in their old county of residence. One time only. That means you're telling them, hey, you moved while the books are closed, we couldn't get you registered here. You're allowed to go back one time only to vote in that old county of residence. It's up to them if they want to do that. Give them a new voter registration card to fill out. They can do it while they're there and hand it to you. They can actually take it back with them, mail it back in or drop it off, or they can do it online at KY.
govote.ky.gov.
There we go. Go vote at ky.gov. Now, if they move to this county prior to that date, October the 11th, so if they move the 10th or sooner into this county and you can't find them electronic poll book, they're not allowed to vote in this county, and they're not allowed to go back to their old county of residence and vote, because they had ample opportunity or time to register in this county to vote and be a registered voter, okay? The bad thing is you guys are the ones that get to tell them this. So that's why I say keep this book handy. If you show this to them, let them read it. This is KRS, this is regulations for Kentucky statute. That's how we operate by. This often appeases them. Now, if this doesn't appease a voter, anytime you have a voter that isn't happy, always get them off to the side, put them on the phone with the clerk's office and let them talk with them. The clerk's office during voting, whether it's early voting or election day, is in session for all those days. The whole election board's there, which is Republican chairperson, Democrat chairperson, the clerk, who's the chairman of the board, the sheriff, and then they always have a circuit judge on standby if needed to talk to voters to work through issues, okay? So that's always available to any voter. All right, page 35. Down at the bottom, challengers. And I'm covering this because you all do have a what we call a certified challenger, and part of certified challengers for any county is to make sure they come to this class, and they are here. So we want to cover some of the basics here. Challengers must produce written appointment to election officers on demand, meaning if a challenger shows up, they should show you their credentials when they first get there. Over on the next page is really more of the do's and don'ts. The voter is not they're there to challenge whether some of these listings here. The voter is not a duly registered voter. The voter is not a resident. They may be a convicted felon. However, if the challenger attempts to challenge a person's right to vote, he or she must explain this challenge only to an election officer. They're not allowed to confront any voter, okay? The challenged voter will then need to sign what's called an SB E32 oath of voter form. The challenger will then sign the bottom portion of that form before a voter is allowed to vote. Challengers are the only persons permitted to have a checkoff list, and I'm going to cover this again in a little bit too, in the form of a paper, cell phones, computers, or any other electronic device to record the identity of a voter within the voting room. Okay? However, this applies to everyone, whether it's a challenger, news media, you people, anybody else. No one is allowed to record the identity of the voter in the act of voting. So if this challenged voter receives a ballot and goes into a private booth and marks theirs, even a challenger can't record the identity of them actually voting, okay? Challengers cannot electioneer or campaign, they can't handle election materials, attempt to intimidate or harass verbally otherwise any voter being challenged or any election officer. Behave in any manner to disrupt activities at the polling place or attempt to interfere with the proper conduct of an election. Okay? And if any of those challengers cannots happen, an election officer can ask that that challenger be removed. Okay? Are there any questions on challengers? Yes, sir.
How often does this occur?
Not very often. Certain elections, governor's elections, we see challengers, presidential elections. Occasionally, we see them in counties that have heated races that are local, but it's still very seldom. Okay? All right, if there's no questions on that, we'll go to page 37. Page 37 is talking about electioneering. How many feet from the entrance of your polling location out, there can be no campaigning, no electioneering? 100 feet. Now, 100 feet, if you think about it, it's only about 40 yards, right? It's not very far. But if there are people parking inside that 100 feet boundary, and they could, a voter is allowed to have a small bumper sticker, which is like 14 inches by 5 inches, normal bumper sticker. That's campaign related. You guys are not allowed to have any campaign related bumper stickers on your cars as election officials. If you have them, cover them up, park on the other side of that 100-foot boundary, back up to somebody else's car that's going to be there all day, or back up to a building, because no one can see those. If there is a private property less than, say, 50 feet from the entrance of your polling location, they're allowed to have campaign signs in it. We cannot do anything about it, right? If a voter walks into your polling location with campaign-related material on, a shirt, a jacket, a hat, pins, buttons, anything, are they allowed in there?
Yes.
Yes, voters are, but they're not allowed to use it to campaign with. Meaning they can't stand in line talking to someone and say, you should vote for this candidate or this person or this party, right? That's a violation. Be careful if people are walking in, sheriffs, even judges, you have the privacy booths. Make sure no one's leaving campaign-related material laying in private booths. Buttons, pins, pamphlets, anything like that. Keep those areas clean. Always rove around and make sure there's nothing left behind. If you find it, discard it. Now, whose job is it to make sure no campaign or electioneering is going on? Sheriff's job. Kind of everybody's, yes, but the sheriff's responsible, because the sheriff's the one that, if there is a violation, has to conduct this interview with the voter to say, hey, you may not be aware of this, but you're committing a campaign violation. I have to write it up in SBE 53 form, the sheriff's report, right? You want to be very descriptive. That way, if she goes to the grand jury after all of every election, if they question her on anything that happened, if you didn't write it up and be descriptive, she has to mumble through it with the grand jury trying to figure out what happened. Because things do happen. They'll call the Attorney General's office, it gets noted, but if you guys don't put it on the sheriff's report, then it doesn't match up, right? So make sure you're addressing all those situations, all right? Exit polling. Exit polling is allowed in the state of Kentucky. It's been there forever. Someone can conduct an interview with a voter after the voter has voted. They're not allowed to do it on the way in. They can stand right outside the entrance of your polling location. They can't obstruct voters from getting in or disrupt the process. But after that voter has voted, they're allowed to go out and be interviewed. It's up to the voter if they want to be interviewed or not. Prohibition against checkoff list. We mentioned this earlier. The only person allowed to keep a checkoff list is a certified challenger. you have one, okay? So that's kind of why they're there. They're checking to see, are the people there legitimate? Are these proper? Blah, blah, blah. Sometimes they're there just to find out what's happening. So they can, while you're checking people in and stuff, they can lean over your shoulder, but they can't get in there and touch your poll pad and do all that stuff. They can find out who is being checked in and who's voted and all that. You guys are not allowed to keep a checkoff list. And what I mean by this is if you're working a location, you have friends, families, neighbors that normally come into your location and you're a clerk, and you notice they haven't shown up, if you were to pick the phone up and call and say, hey, Granny, you need to get down here and vote. You haven't shown up yet. That's construed as a checkoff list and you're in violation. So please do not do that, okay? Yes. You're going to have to speak up, though.
Okay. On the exit polling, so like, for example, I was at Liaison voting last time. Could there be someone standing in that hallway? I mean, there was a huge long line snaking all through the school pretty much when I voted. Could there be people standing there? Because that's not the actual polling room that was in the cafeteria. Or do they need to be outside the school?
Just outside the entrance of the voting room.
Okay.
Yeah.
It could be anywhere in that school except for the cafeteria that we're voting in.
Yeah. But here's the gotcha. If that line's snaking through and long, they can't be conducting interviews with people inside that line. So if you're a sheriff and this is happening, you know there's an exit poller out there, go out occasionally and check on this to make sure they're not violating. Because they're just like a challenger, they get one warning, and then the next time it happens, a phone call is made to the clerk's office, they'll send local authorities out and have the exit poller removed. And this has happened before. Not saying it's happened here, but it has in locations. Did everybody hear her question? I do need to repeat it. You're asking, where are they allowed to stand, right? And it's outside the entrance of the polling location.
Well, in that case, I meant specifically the room because there's a whole campus.
Right, but the polling location is the room, okay? That's where the actual voting is being processed, inside that room. And there are places that have multiple rooms and buildings that they use for voting, but they can't stand inside the room where voters are. They have to be on the outside of that voting room or location. All right, on page 4041, this is always a big one. It's talking about voter assistance, right? If you have a person come in and they say they need assistance, meaning they are unable physically to fill out a ballot by themselves, or maybe they're wanting to use the ADA device here, but they want someone to assist them in doing this. Anytime someone assists a voter in voting, a voter assistance form must be filled out. However, a voter has to fall into one of three categories before they're allowed to have someone assist them in voting, right? They have to be either blind, physically disabled, or have the inability to read English. That's the only three categories. Having said that, physical disability has many forms to it, right? Somebody could simply have this going on and they're unable to take an ink pen and put pressure to a paper and fill it out. That's a form of a disability. Could be dementia or Alzheimer's or any of those. blindness, whatever. But there's a lot of reasons inside that physical disability. The top portion of this is the name of the voter, the address, all that. We have to mark which category this voter falls into. The voter has to sign this. If they are unable to sign, we help them make an X on the sheet, and then we need 2 witnesses to that X. Then right here is a big one. We have to get the signature of the person assisting the voter. They either brought someone with them, or if they have no one, who will assist the voters?
2 judges.
2 judges. We need a Republican and a Democrat assisting that voter. Then this form has to be signed and dated. I can't stress to you enough, make sure any form you're filling out, voter registration cards, oath of voter forms, voter assistance, sheriff's reports, any ballot accountability reports, make sure you're signing these and dating them. Has anybody ever had to come back in and sign forms because you failed to? I heard that. Thank you. I love honesty. A lot of people say, doesn't happen here. It's always happened. So please make sure you're taking the time to get these forms filled out. Now, carrying on with this voter assistance form, down at the bottom, there's an application for permanent assistance. Only 2 categories apply, blindness and physical disability. Somebody goes, why not unable to read English? Because the thought process is because somebody filled it out because they couldn't read English, they may down the road learn to read English, and that's not a category for permanent assistance, okay? Now, if someone you're checking in and it pops up on the screen and it says permanent assistance, that means they have already applied. So they've already been deemed marked permanent assistance by the County Board of Elections. For those folks, does this form have to be filled out? Yes. Every single time we're assisting a voter, that voter assistance form must be filled out. Now, the voter that's been marked permanent assistance is relieved of filling the form out. You guys will have to fill the form out for that voter. And what we're really after here is the person assisting the voter or the 2 judges, because that can change every time. That's why this form has to be filled out. Sign and date it. Are there any questions on voter assistance? This is different than somebody asking for instructions by you guys. How do I fill a ballot out? Right? That's been asked before. How do I do that? Sometimes they forget. Sometimes it could be a brand new voter, first-time voter. How do I fill it out? Always have a R&D take them over to a sample ballot and instruct them. Each race, you mark the candidate of your choice, darken or fill it in, and go to the next race. Keep doing that until you're finished. Then we'll take you over to a scanner and we'll scan your ballot, okay? Or they may need instructions or help. They want to use the ADA machine, but just need a few instructions. That's different than voter assistance, right? Voter assistance is somebody's physically standing there with that voter, helping them fill a ballot out. All right, saw some hands. What's the question?
Am I the only hand?
No, I think there's 2 or 3, but
So my question is on the requirements to why a voter may have assistance, that's just them telling us. There's no verification on our part. Correct?
that's correct.
Okay, so whether they're blind or not, we don't really know, but they say they're blind and we're going with it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And understand, like a physical disability, there are people that aren't blind, but they're near blind, right? And they don't have the ability to read a ballot. So that can fall into that. Yeah, people say it's legally blind, but it's not our judgment call if they're being truthful that they're legally blind, right? Because they're filling paperwork out. You guys have to understand, on a lot of situations, these paperworks and forms that are being filled out, that's why they go to the grand jury. They also go to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. They investigate. People are investigated, whether you believe it or not. These things do get followed up on. So it's not you guys as police to make judgment calls on people. Same thing holds true if you see somebody come in and you think they should have assistance, that's not your call. You may ask them politely, would you need somebody to assist you? And if they say no, no means no, right? But we always like making sure the paperwork's filled out properly and it's in place to cover you, the clerk, and that voter. But they have to request. Was there any more questions? Yes.
Does a person giving assistance, can they speak for the voter? Out on that dementia spectrum, some people don't.
You got to be careful with that. Usually what happens, he asked if the person assisting can speak for that voter. And I'm not quite sure where he was going down that path with that, but what I think he's saying is if they had dementia, can they actually choose who to vote for? No. But here, in most cases that I've seen, someone with dementia or on the verge of dementia or full Alzheimer's that still have the capacity to still want to vote, the answer is no, because usually they will bring someone with them, right? And that person with them, they're going to be conversing with them back and forth and doing all that. But most of those folks, when they get so bad, they're not coming in to vote, all right? And
I
yep.
just wanted to add, it seems odd because I've seen them on Capitol Hill for like a year. Oh, wait, I got confused with something else.
Remember, we're being recorded. If this was evening class, I'd jump in with you, but yes.
So just to confirm, my initial question is there a list of what qualifies a physical disability? What I'm understanding is that we don't need to be concerned with that. We trust the request of the voter and then do all these forms.
That's correct. And the reason for that is we are covered as long as that form is filled out. Because again, if anything happens beyond that form from anybody, then that's held in a court of law because they signed the document stating that's an affidavit on their part, right? So as long as that form is filled out, now, I get this every class. People, when I say people, poll workers, often to get a voter processed and pushed through really want some people to, let's fill this form out and get you over and we'll get you taken care of. And I know you're not trying to get in there and say, vote this way or vote that way. You're trying to get them in and out. But you have to be very careful of that, because that stuff will get you in trouble, because that's the stuff they say no, you end up not doing it, and then they're going to make a call to the clerk's office or the attorney general's office. Hey, they're trying to force me to fill out a voter assistance form and vote. Y'all understand where I'm going? So you have to be careful.
I don't understand what you're saying.
I'm saying don't push people into voter assistance if they don't want it.
Oh, okay, so when they say no, that's it. I mean,
No means no.
yeah.
Even though you're looking at it and say, they really should, but, and I get it. I've been there. I've seen this stuff. It happens. So just be careful. We good on voters? Nope, we're not. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if a person cannot read English, what qualifies anybody with all the different languages
Yeah.
to know how to?
Yeah, and that's always a tough one. Usually the best way to handle that is writing something to them, showing them, and pointing to stuff to say, can you interpret this or anything? You all don't have any interpreters.
We've
and-
not run into that in Oldham County, but we have had people that do not speak a foreign language and cannot read.
Yeah.
So we have had that where, you know, it's the average white male and cannot read. So we have had voter assistance for that, but we have not had instances where they don't understand, they can't read or understand English at this point. So
It has happened. It's very, very seldom, to be honest with you.
yeah.
Most people that do want to vote, and maybe they're broken English, but they don't read it real well, a lot of times they'll bring someone with them that'll help and assist them. That's been the norm. Is that what you're going to comment on?
No, I don't know if I did understand English, so they do understand English, but they can't read.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. They understand English. They just cannot read English.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
So I do have one more question. The person assisting, I don't see any age requirements here. Are they supposed to be above 18? Are we supposed to verify that?
No, they could have like a 16, 17-year-old that came in with someone, could be a family member.
Okay, so
They-
there's no age requirements, no ID that was required for them?
Just the
They
signature.
got this
Yep.
affidavit.
Yep, just the signature.
Okay.
Yep. And I know that's crazy because they don't have that because minors aren't allowed to vote until they're 18, but I agree with you. Okay. I'm moving on if you guys are good because I'm finished with this book.
I have one question.
Hold on, we got a question here.
Like I said, this is the first time I've done this.
That's fine.
And I know in the past, like when I come up to vote, there's usually like a large line. So if you get somebody that comes up in line to vote and they need that assistance, are we supposed to stop and fill this form out and do all that stuff first before we go on anywhere else?
Absolutely.
Okay.
His question was, he's been voting, but the first time you're working as an election
Correct.
official, and he noticed there's long lines. He wanted to say, do you stop and get that form filled out, and then we move on? And the answer is yes. And that's why I say the sheriffs will normally take a voter out of line over to a separate table with the form, help them get that filled out,
Bring them back.
and then bring them back to the front of the line.
Okay.
Because we're not stopping processing voters at a spot in that line because it could take sometimes 10, 15, 20 minutes.
So as a clerk, I don't fill this out.
No.
No.
The clerks will have one responsibility, checking people in
Right.
and printing ballots.
Okay. When something like this comes up, I get the sheriff.
You get the sheriff, say, hey, they need to fill this voter assistance form out, this voter registration card, oath of voter form, get them over there to a separate place to fill it out, and then bring them back to the front of the line. Because we can't stop the lines from moving for a particular voter, but we're courteous. We're going to get it all taken care of and then get them back to the front of the line.
So when they're done getting the form filled out, and bring it back to, they will sign then,
Yes, to the front.
give them the form.
Yep, and even move to the front of the line. Unless you're right in the middle of processing, finish that, and then, hey, hold up, this person was here, we're getting them taken care of. So we can get them in and out. Yes,
I have a question, but it's different from the voter assistant. It may be a little out there. If somebody comes in and they scan their ID, they want to vote as a Republican or Democrat, but then their record shows that they are registered in the opposite party. You know, they are Android, do we call you? I mean, how do we go about that?
I didn't hear most of that question.
So if they are registered Democrat, they want to, but they think that they are registered Republican.
We talking about parties here, Democrat? Okay, I would, can we save that because in this election, it's a general election, parties don't matter.
Yeah.
Primaries, they do, so hold on to that, and you come back in the spring next year and ask that same question. And I'm not trying to be funny because it doesn't apply in this
Yeah.
election.
Yeah, and I was just gonna add, that's a real big problem, and it frustrates me because it's like, don't you remember in 5th grade when they taught us this stuff, but we have to be really nice, but we won't have that problem now.
Correct.
It's a real problem, and they're angry at us election officials, but we have to say, this is how you are registered.
Yeah.
This is how you'll vote, and we'll change this for next time. But that was a problem, especially when Democrats, and then they want me to explain why the Democrats can't vote for the 2 Republican sheriff.
I'm going to cover some of this in a little bit, so let's keep that.
Yep.
And let me move on, because I do have a time frame to get you in and out, and I want to stay on it if I can. So if there's no more questions on any voter assistance or anything, I'm moving on. So what I want to do is go with you on the setup of the equipment. I want to take you through some scenarios, opening, some scenarios, and then closing, and then we'll get you out of here. Does that sound good? All right. She alluded to this a while ago, but who's responsible for getting the equipment up and going on Election Day? That's right. She listened. Judges, except for the print on demand, and that's, where's my clerks? Y'all better listen when I get to this, because now you guys are responsible for getting this up and going, okay? Is everybody good? What's the rule? One judge reads, one judge does it, right? What's the rule on the printer? Right, because your 2 clerks are sharing a Verity print. One clerk will read it and one will do it. This is laid out in such a way, the scanners, the W is the touch writer, your ADA machine, and the print. She alluded that they're going to have all this pretty much lined out for you, which it absolutely tickles me. It makes my job easier, thank you, but it makes your job really easy too. Because then all you're required to do is come in because everything's pretty much assembled, laid out. The best thing is it's laid out too, right? For flow. That's one of the biggest things, is making sure we have a secure flow. Easy flow, meaning they come through one door, they get processed at a clerk's table, they move on with their ballot, filling it out, and then they go by and scan it, and then they usually exit out another door, maybe the same door, but there's a nice flow. Nobody can visibly see another voter voting or marking their ballot or scanning, right? That's what this whole process is about, making sure everything's nice and clean. Okay. So you're going to see a lot of stuff here that I'm going to do. I always ask that judges start with the scanner. Why?
The most popular machine.
I'm sorry, why?
It's the most popular machine.
It is the most popular machine, sort of. It's where all the vote totals are captured. In the old days, you had 2 types of machine. You had what was an E-slate, was actually a voting machine. The ADA is no longer a voting machine. It's a ballot marking device for people that can't put pen to paper and mark a ballot. It doesn't capture votes. All it does is print a marked ballot for that ADA community. So they will then come over and scan their ballot. Okay? Now, it is very important, but I ask you to do that first because the majority of the people are going to be scanning the ballot, right? And when I say majority, 100% of the people are going to be scanning the ballot. All right? Unless they're angry and they don't want to scan a ballot. So we'll go on that in just a minute. All right. I didn't ask this earlier. Do you all put anything in the machines? No. But you do have the yellow seal. You want to break it, check it, and then resort. Okay. All right. So the way you see this machine, it should have the plugs already in it. All this equipment has to be put on a working outlet, right? And how do we know the outlet's working? Each power brick will have a green light on it. That's important, right? Because if you don't have a green light, you don't have power coming from the wall or your surge protector or whatever into this unit. So the first first thing you want to do, finding scissors or cutters inside your...
No, sorry, I misunderstood you.
They're not going to have what?
Nothing in the machine.
So we're gonna seal them already.
They're already
With what?
sealed.
The seal?
Which one? Green, yellow,
The
blue?
yellow?
It's a guy yellow and they got blue.
Blue's on the front.
So blue is what we seal it with. We
Yeah.
keep the yellow at the office.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. There was a little miscommunication up here. So if you would pretend there's a blue seal on here and you're going to not touch it, right? You don't have to open this up at all. It's going to have a blue seal. And when I open this, I'm going to magically slide that blue seal that's laying loose in here and put it on the front, and then everything looks right. Okay? Guess what? The people coming this evening is going to know a little more than you because they won't see all this. All right. Anyhow, the blue seal will be on here. You don't have to open this up. Nothing will be in here. You don't have to worry about it like you used to, which is good. How many new people do we have? A few of you. I don't know that you're quite going to see this, but you may. Every machine, the keys to the machine are located where?
In the cage and the red bag.
In the cage, in the red bag, in the pouch of the red bag. I'll show you the red bag because there are new people here. Be right inside there. This is located in the cage along with the poll pad, right? Judges, get the keys out. You're going to need them. Clerks, you're going to have to need a set too to get the... So they're going to accommodate two sets of these, or you're going to share. These keys are color-coded, right? Red, yellow, green. Anytime you see a red dot, green dot, yellow dot, that's the key that matches up to it. So we're going to use the green key to unlock the latches. These are double latch. So you take your thumbs, push down from the top, it frees the bottom, grab the bottom of the latch, pull back, and that's how these open. Make sure that's secured. Now, you didn't see this. And you didn't see this because they keep that back at the office. First thing you want to do, and you all are using these, right? Okay. All right, first thing you want to do is verify all the information on your pink verification form. Top line is polling locations, so you make sure that matches. There's a pouch on top, one in the front. They should be the same, right? Make sure it says the right polling location where you're located. North Oldham High School, South, whatever. Next thing is the serial number of the unit. It's found on the tablet up at the top here. Then the next recorded seal number is a red seal number that will be located right on top of the unit here. There's a locked door. That's where your jump drive's located underneath the locked door with red seal. Right by that red seal, there is a red light. How important is the red light? Very important because that tells you that when you plug this in and you saw a green light on the brick, it's actually making it through the brick and there is power on this unit with that red light there. Okay? Very important. Next seal is going to be your yellow seal recorded. You don't have to worry about because they have it back at the office. The next one is a blue tub seal that's on the front. When I say seal numbers, on every seal there is a number. One judge will read it, the other one verifies it, that is recorded properly. The next seal is the black seal, which is located on the back of this device. It's a black seal number. Seal on here, make sure you're checking that. And the last seal that you're going to validate and check is the green seal that was laying loose in there. And I'll cover what that's for here in just a second. The last thing you have to validate on this is the starting lifetime counter number. We cannot do this until the machine is up and running, correct? How do we start it? All of these machines pretty much act the same way. You take the blue lever here, lift it up with your yellow key where the yellow dot is. You unlock this. That frees this. You bring it forward, put it in the cradle, lightly push down. Now this red light that was so important, when you push down, changes to green. Now that power is going into the tablet. You lay it back, you lock it back, and now it's ready to be turned on. On the back where the cord's plugged in, there's one red button. That's your power button. You click it one time. This will start booting up. How long does this take to power up? 5 minutes. New people. You hear people shouting stuff out, right? They're answering the questions I'm asking. How do they know this? It's in the book, step by step. It's also, they've done it enough now, and it's pretty darn easy, isn't it? 5 minutes, so you don't touch it. You only come back to this machine when it comes up and says print 0 tape. So now I'm going to move on. I want to move over to the ADA machine, because once all your scanners are set up, you want to make sure your ADA device is set up. The cables to the printer. Now, here's a got you in this class. I only have one printer I bring with me. I'm going to share this printer back and forth between the ADA and the print on demand. All right? So I'm going to be toggling cables back here to demonstrate. So, just like the other one, make sure the power cord's secured in here. It's plugged into a working outlet. Using your green key, unlock the latches. Push down, grab from the bottom, pull up, make sure that's popped into place. Verification form. This is a much shorter one. Location name, serial number found on the tablet. One red seal, which is the red seal that's up top by the locked lid. And then the lifetime counter, and you cannot do that until the machine is up and running, correct? Before doing anything, powering anything on, there's a headset that is in here. Make sure you get the headset out. This isn't in your book if you want to write it in there. Make sure you remove this controller here and plug this in where it has an emblem that says headsets on it. Plug it in. There's also an emblem that shows a wheelchair. Don't plug it into that. Plug it into the headphones, right? Does anybody know what the wheelchair is used for?
They have a glow stick.
Yes. If they use sip and puff, they could be paraplegic and they use sip and puff. That can be removed from their wheelchair, plugged into that unit, and they can use sip and puff to mark their ballot, right? You all knew that. I bet even the new people knew that. All right, the same thing. Blue lever, lift it up, yellow key, unlock this, pull it forward, dock it. This red light goes to what? Then you lock it back into place. What button do I hit on the back? Red button. How long does it take? 5 minutes. At this time, I'm going to move over to the print on demand. For clerks. Clerks, pay attention. Make sure all your cables are connected and both the printer and this print on demand is plugged into a working outlet. We know it's working because there's a green light, right? First thing I want you to do is come to the printer. Down at the bottom right corner, there's a power button. You press and hold the power button for 3 seconds approximately until you see up on the little screen up top it says please wait, and then you can let go. All right? Here's what happens if you don't do that. If you just press that one time, it's going to go into all kinds of diagnostic stuff, and then it'll take about 5 to 7 minutes for it to actually go through everything. But if you press and hold it, you're saying, hey, power up for me. Printer's on. Machine over here, what key do I use to unlock the latch? We gonna have a verification form? We are. Pink verification form, location name on the pouch, serial number on the tablet, one red seal just like that one, right by the lock lid. Have a red light there. I've got power coming in, everything's good. Lifetime counter, I can't check that until the machine's up and running. To get it up and running, blue lever, yellow key. You dock it, what? Red light goes to green light, lay it back, lock it into place, power it on, red button in the back. How long does it take? 5 minutes. So at this point in time, this should have taken 5 minutes. Now it says print 0. You're required, you're forced to print a 0. So you touch print 0. $1 million question coming up here in just a second. I can go ahead and do my lifetime counter check here. Now, judges, make sure you sign off on this. Initial off that you validated all this. So I have my 0 tape here. I want to touch the screen that says open the polls. It asks for an opening poll password. What's the password? 6 ones. It's in the book. Just keep hitting 1 until it stops. For the new people, on the bottom right hand of this screen, you have 2 icons, a battery, a plug. If they're both green, you're good. If you have one that's circled with a line through it, that means one or the other is not working, right? Could be battery or it could be a plug. If it's the plug especially, go through the connections and everything, make sure everything's powered up correctly. Once the tape finishes, you tear this off. $1 million question, who signs this? Everybody. Is that correct? Okay. That's why it says $1 million question. I have a theory on this. If everybody in that room signs off on this, that way if one person goes to jail, you all go to jail. This will be placed into a respective envelope. Verity scan tally tape envelope, opening post 0 tape, put it in there, along with your pink verification form. That verification form is important because you have to pull out that night when you finish to record the ending lifetime counter number, correct? We're still waiting on these to boot up. This one should go first, so I'm going to if I don't have a printer plugged in, it causes a issue with these. So that one get an issue, this one won't. Did Amy mention to you guys, I think she might have forgot.
Makes me nervous when you say that.
You guys are 100% print on demand now. You're not going to have any pre-printed ballots, okay, that you have to deal with. She may have mentioned that. That was a hard decision for the election board if they wanted to do that or not. But we have other counties already doing that, and they have not had an issue. And you guys have multiple print on demand, so that's the safety net that if one went down, we still have backups out there. So we're good right now. There's a while this is still finishing, the green seal that's over here, does anybody know what this is used for? No. Let me explain this green case seal, how it works. If you're working early voting, right, and it's the last day, it's a Saturday, we get tapes off, and I'll kind of go through that later. On the last day, we don't break any seals and we don't pull drives out of early voting equipment. We simply lock it up and put one of these green seals around the case handle so it's coming back transported and it's secured with that recorded in there. The board will break this seal and break the red seal and get the drive out and record it on election day. That's the only time it's allowed. Woo. If these are election days, then you will close them out, get the tapes, shut it down, break the seals, get the drives out, but you will still put this on election day scanners after you pull the drive out. So my advice to you, if you have a green seal, lay it in the back right there. Now you're going to have privacy screens on each of these machines, right? This and that stand down there. Just put it there, and it's only used on scanners, the green seal. Put it there so you see it and you don't forget about it, okay? Because I've had people to put them in bags and they never get sealed when they're supposed to.
It's also on the judge's checkoff sheet for end of night closing.
That's good.
So it'll be on your checkoff sheet to remember to put the green seals on.
Okay, now I'm at print zero report. I can do that just like the other machine. Finish the validation. And you will have respective envelopes that are used for your ADA touch writer machine and your print on demand. They're black and white envelopes. Put this in there and you'll put your zero tape in there. And then you touch open pose and it wants a password, and the password is? Just keep hitting ones until you can't do it anymore, right? When the tape finishes, you tear it off. Everyone signs it.
And you can either pull the tape out longer or sign on the back. There's only a few slots on there, so whatever works best for you guys.
All right, now to finish this one over here. That will come back up in a second. There we go. So when this comes up, clerks, where's my clerks? Understand you don't get zero tapes per se on print on demand machines, okay? Or closing tapes. You can never close a print on demand machine. You just open them up, put a poll worker password in, and they're ready to be used. And when you're finished, you'll print a ballot count report off and then turn it off and just shut it down, okay? You can't close it. There's no closing because all it's used for is to print ballots. So when that first came up, it asked for a poll worker code. You put 6 ones in, and then you see issue a ballot or print ballot count report. I want you to print a ballot count report on the first morning of every early voting day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and every evening, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, print a ballot count report, because that's telling us for each day how many ballots were produced by precinct from each of these print-on-demand units. Does everybody get that? Okay. Now, The last step on this one over here, after you print your ballot count report, and you'll have an envelope or something for them to.
Yeah,
Go
there'll
ahead.
be a green envelope because since this is a green tab, there's an envelope that's green print that you'll put all the print tapes in.
Your handheld scanner, make sure you plug this into the top of the lid. You know it's working because you're going to get that sound and you got a little red dot coming out of it. Tear your ballot count report off, sign it, and put it into the black and white envelope. And do your final check on your verification sheet.
Everyone signs that?
Yes, everyone signs it, even though the clerks are doing it. Just like the clerks are signing all the tapes because the judges did it. Yep. All right, any questions?
The judges don't get involved in that at all.
This one, no, not unless somebody has an issue and you're smarter than they are and you want to come over and.
Or if you're done setting up your equipment and you want to help the clerks out getting the rest of their equipment set up. Simultaneously.
Simultaneous. And here's the thing, that's why I say one person reads, one does. If you get three hands involved, you're going to have problems. So clerks keep the judges out and judges keep the clerks out. Okay, I want to run through a scenario here with you. So I have a voter that comes in. I'm a clerk. They present their driver's license to me. I touch scan barcode. I put their driver's license in the back. It reads it. It comes up. I'm a clerk. I'll look at the voter and say, hold on one second. I'm gonna redo this. I thought I had this reset, and it was still there and had information that said this person's already voted from last night's class. Okay. Hit scan barcode, place that in the back. It finds it, comes up. Voter's name, address is there, so I'm going to ask that voter what? What's your name and address to confirm it. So it's all good. I'm going to say proceed. I'm going to choose Kentucky driver's license. Okay. I'm going to flip the screen over here to let the voter sign. Flip it back to me after they've done sign. Hit the initial box, submit. It's going to print. Printer not connected. I've lost power. Somebody tell me if that printer comes on there.
Yep.
All right. Okay. And what we get is a receipt, right? With the voter's name on it, the ballot style for that voter. The clerk will then take the handheld scanner, shoot the barcode. It brings up the ballot style that matches what's on here. Then you say, yes, print the ballot. And it'll send a message over to the printer and print a ballot out for that voter. What happens to these tickets? We take a marker and mark through the barcode, and then we put it in an envelope. And that voter's done. They go over and mark their ballot. And then they take it and scan it, correct? So,
You initial the iPad, the poll pad before it prints. Yeah, you don't initial the actual receipt. You draw a line through the barcode.
okay. Now, here's my scenarios with you. I'm going to take you through some stuff, ask you some questions. We talked about this earlier. It's a general election, right? A person votes how they want to vote. They don't have to vote their party. Correct? Okay. All of these races on this election are vote for ones. Your school board is too, right? Yes. Every single one of them has a write-in box or slot. So you have the candidates and a write-in. You all understand what write-ins are? Do you know how to instruct somebody to do a write-in? If somebody wanted to write a person's name in, they mark the little box out to the write-in, and then they write the first name, last name. You guys do have a certified write-in candidate for governor. It was done Monday or Tuesday of this week. So how's this work? The clerks will have a list of certified write-in candidates. You keep it face down right beside you. We never advertise write-in candidates. If someone was to ask you, are there any certified write-in candidates, you can show them the list. They're not allowed to take it. They review it, and then it's on them to go over and mark the box and do it. But they may ask, how do I do this write-in? And you need to be able to instruct them, okay? Is everybody good?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Can they take a picture of the write-in sheet? I know, I don't spell well. I would.
Yes, they can do that, but they can't take it with them, the sheet, because we don't advertise it. Okay. Also, with general elections every time, we have straight party voting, right? Everybody knows that? So we got straight party Republican and Democrat. You all understand how it works, right? Do you? I'm going to ask you a question. For example, I marked this straight party Republican, but I came down into the Secretary of State's office and marked Democrat. Am I allowed to do that?
Yes.
I thought you all said you knew how this worked. I got both answers. I wasn't looking for both. I'm looking for the right one. The right answer is yes, I can do this. I can mark anything I mark in a race individually will supersede the straight party selector or ticket. So I'm going to ask you again, am I allowed to do this?
Yes.
Yes. That's the number one question asked to you guys during general elections on straight party. Can I do this? And the answer is yes, you can. And I can prove it because now this will go over and be scanned and it'll accept the ballot. I don't take questions. Who has a question? Yes, ma'am.
It's helpful for the new people if when you're talking through something, if you tell us where it is in the book so that I can make notes and such. Otherwise, it's difficult to follow.
I agree with you. Here's the issue. That is not in the book. That was free information I'm giving you, and I don't charge for it. I'm just kidding with you. That is not in the book. That is in your Kentucky regulatory statute that's about that thick. So that's why I cover this, to make sure you understand it, because that's the number one thing that probably comes up. And it's confusing to people. Everybody thinks they understand how straight party works, but they don't. Here's another thing people do, and why in the world they do it, I don't understand. They will mark a straight party and then go down into every race and mark the same party line through it. And some people, including you all, think that's an overvote. It's not. But anything happens here just supersedes that straight party selector. The purpose of the straight party selector was to fill out the ballot with your party line and make it quicker. That's all it was for. But you guys have to understand how it works. So if they do this and this, it's a waste of time down here, but they can. Just like I could do straight party selector and I can mark Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat. Well, if I don't use straight party selector, am I allowed to do Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat?
Yes. If they don't ask you, you won't know anyway.
That's correct. But some people ask.
And the school board race is nonpartisan. So if they do a straight ticket and don't choose anything on the school board, they won't have any selection on the school board candidates. So keep that in mind as well, because it's a nonpartisan race.
Yes. Yes. Yes, if you have, and that school board will not affect all precincts. but it'll be at every voting center location. So it only affects the precincts that are involved with that school board. So yes, if their ballot has that school board on it, you can say, if you were to do straight party, remember that's not attached to that nonpartisan race. Yes.
Is a write-in candidate considered Republican or Democrat or?
So he asked if a write-in candidate is considered Republican or Democrat or whatever. With write-ins, it doesn't matter, because when they fill their write-in information in on there, I've seen it done where they don't even select a party. What it means is they didn't go through a primary and they waited to a general to fill in as a write-in. And most often these people won't even get out and campaign and do anything. Now, the key is, and on a write-in, you have to understand this. Remember I said there's a certified write-in candidate for governor, right? But every single race has a write-in spot. The reason being the last day to register as write-in candidate is like 14 days out from the election. So it's way later than the normal deadline to get your name on the ballot. Therefore, every race has to have a write-in spot just in case somebody puts it in. If, for example, I'm not a certified write-in, but down here for Attorney General, I marked this and wrote my name in, I can do it. This scanner will accept it. It doesn't check for certified write-ins or not. It'll accept it. But the board, when they review all this after election, will kick it out because I'm not a certified write-in candidate. Only certified write-in candidates actually receive votes. Okay? Now, I'm doing it, yes.
Back to that point, but when you go to print the closing tape on there, every one of those write-in names, whether it's Ross or Amy or anybody
Will be
else,
in there.
print out.
That's correct. When you do a write-in report at the end, it will print out. And they see it because when it's called adjudication, but the board has to look at all the write-ins at night when they're actually recording the V drives that you all bring into them, and they have to go through and give votes to the certified write-in candidates, and they ignore all the other stuff. But it's there for record. Okay, so on this ballot, and this is kind of more for the new people, because you guys have done this while, will understand this. I went through and marked this ballot. I didn't care. I just went through and marked individual races. However, on the Secretary of State's here, it's a vote for one, and I made two selections, two choices. Do you all know what this is called? It's an overvote. I made too many choices. So the scanner, when it sees it, will reject the ballot. Secretary of State, too many choices are marked. This contest will not be counted. To make changes, pull the sheet or cast ballot as is. What's it mean if they're pulling the sheet? They're going to ask you, hey, I made a mistake. I want to spoil this ballot, and you give me a new ballot, correct? Okay, so let's take that scenario through. So they want to spoil it. You're not allowed to touch this, are you? Once you give this ballot to a voter, you're not allowed to touch it again. The voter will ask them to tri-vote it. You'll get them a spoiled ballot envelope. I know I have it somewhere. Spoiled ballot envelope, they'll put it in here, and do y'all put them in the tubs? And you'll walk them over to the tub. There's a flap on top of the tub, and they'll insert their ballot down in here, and that gets separated from scanned ballots. It drops in a bag right here, separate. Now they need a new ballot. How do they do that? Take them back to the clerks. They can either scan their driver's license again, or they can do a manual lookup. I'm going to just make it easy. I'm going to scan it again. When it comes up for this voter, I picked the wrong one. I got the one already done. When I scan this, it's going to come up and say already voted, right? But that's okay. The process is out by the name on the left side, there's a little gear or cogwheel. You touch that cogwheel, and it asks for a password. The password's, I wish it was. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then say done. I think I typed it in right. There we go. And then it gets to the spot where you can say spoil ballot. It wants a reason. I'm going to say soiled. And it wants you to confirm the ballot style. Well, it's going to be the same because we already processed it once, right? So you just hit the ballot style and say spoil ballot. And it will print a new ticket for this voter, but it will say spoil duplicate 1. And then all you have to do is scan it. Boop. It'll print a new ballot. They go mark it, and then you'll come back and they'll scan their ballot. Now, if they mess this up again, then you go through the same process. It's going to say spoil duplicate 2, right? And you want to encourage them to do it right this time. How come? Because they're only allowed a total of 3 ballots and they're finished. So the third one has to be right and they scan it, or if they don't like it, it gets spoiled and they're finished. 3 strikes, you're out. Okay? Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
So that in the unlikely event that they sort of spoil a third ballot, going back to what you said on the first one, if that's go ahead and run, everything else will count except for the one that they messed up. Is that correct?
That's correct. So, and I can show you because I didn't drop that in there. When that kicks the ballot out, if they don't want to take the time to actually have a spoiled ballot and they just want to cast as is, when they cast that, it will accept the ballot. That race that's overvoted will not count. Anything marked properly will count. Good question. All right, I want to take you through the ADA one real quick. So if a person has a need to use this ADA device, poll worker will come over and put a poll worker code in. You guessed it, 6 1s. Oh, I need the printer. Before I got to share my printer. All right, put the 6 1s in, say accept. Come on. It's always the bad thing about sharing a printer. You run into this. Not for you clerks. For me sharing it. It will.
Hook that one up there over there with the cords in the back?
No, because that one now is getting the same error because it doesn't have a printer attached. This will eventually catch up here. Hopefully. Because I want to turn this thing off. I can do this. This may force it. Okay, it doesn't want to connect. You guys are getting lucky. But the reason I'm wanting to take you through this exercise, in your machine guide, there is a section in there how to actually process a voter. And the reason this is important, back in August, middle of August, I was in a 2-hour meeting from 7 o'clock p.m. to 9 o'clock p.m. with the ADA community. And I'm not saying you guys did this, I'm just saying the same spiel to every class I teach. There has been situations where you guys are doing really good, you get the equipment up, it's ready for use, but people will come in and ask to use the ADA device, and people are trying to talk them out of using it, say, hey, we'll just fill out a voter assistance form, we'll go over and assist you, help you do it. Are we allowed to do that?
No.
No. If a voter wants to use that device and it's available, we have to be trained and ready to help them. So I was really wanting to get through this, but I don't want to take your all's time. I could shut this down and redo this and bring it up. This works very similar to your print on demand. The only difference is you're activating ballot. You have to pick the right ballot style based off your slip for a voter. And then the voter will go in and mark their selections and then say print, and it'll print a pre-marked ballot that goes over and be scanned. Some of the things that I wanted to show you was once the ballot's up, there's a tab at the top that says screen and one that says audio. You can make changes on this. The screen changes the contrast in the back, black background, white letters, white background with black letters, full color. Text size, you increase, large the font. Can you imagine the large font, how many people that helps? Because we said legally blind earlier, some people just needs larger print because they can't see that fine print on the ballot to fill it out. And that's why that's important to be able to do that. Any changes that are made for a specific voter, once they've printed their ballot, it goes back to default settings on here. All right. But I think I do have somewhere up here a sample that I did last night's class where when these things come out pre-printed, they're nicely darkened in by each race, very legible, and then they get scanned over there. You cannot do an overvote on an electronic device. It just won't let you. Does straight party ticket work the same way as it would on somebody filling theirs out? Works exactly the same. Crossover votes where you can split ticket and do straight party and then mark something different. It all is allowed on this just like it would be. So it's giving the same advantages to disabled people to get the same ballot and the same feel for the election as you guys have. All right. All right, I said my spiel on the ADA.
Can they spoil a ballot?
Yes, if there's two things. If they're in the middle of something and this doesn't apply to this election, it applies to what she said. They're in the middle of marking. They realize, hey, you gave me a Democratic ballot and I'm really Republican. You can go into the menu and say spoil the ballot and it just cancels it out and then you start over. But if they marked the ballot and got it out and was able to look at it and said, hey, I didn't mean to do that, you can go through the same spoil process. Fold the ballot, put it in an envelope, take them back over and reissue them on the electronic poll book and get a new duplicate ticket, scan it, or come over here and set them up. Good question. All right. Are there any more? Yes. Page 22 in the which book? Okay, in the machine guide.
I don't understand what this is talking about. It talks about confirming precinct and quantity and changing quantity.
Yes. So on page 22, this is for clerks on the print on demand unit. When you go in to print a ballot, it will come up. Remember I said it will pop up and you confirm off the slip that it did scan and give you the right ballot style. Right underneath that, it says change quantity. Don't ever change the quantity. It's set to 1. You can, but don't do it because it'll print more than one ballot for that same style. That's dangerous. The reason that exists in there, this can also be used for back-end office, for emergency. If something happened and she needed to print 25 of the same ballot style and get them out to a location, they can set that quantity to 25 and then print 25 blank ones and bring them out. But you, as clerks, don't ever change the quantity. Okay? All right. Yes, sir.
These books the same from last year, or the last election cycle?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, hold on. The machine guides are.
Okay.
But the
What I'm getting to, closing out at the end of the day, I thought was extremely confusing and extremely hard for our group to do. And I'm just wondering if that had been hopefully updated where it's easier to follow.
The closing of the machine, of the,
Closing at the end of the day, the closing of the machine.
Are
the
you referring to
scanner?
election day or are you referring to early voting?
No, it was on election day, last election cycle, the one day that you had to vote in person,
Uh-huh.
closing all this equipment out at the end of the day. To me and to our group, very hard to do, very, could not follow the book and get it all done.
No.
That's the first we've heard of this, honestly, because the closing for election day is very easy, step by step. If one reads, one does it, it should go very smoothly. And I'm not discounting that y'all. Early voting's a little different.
First half hour of the whole day.
Was it? Early vote, and maybe because you were tired. Early voting actually is a little different, and it's not spelled out in this book. And that's why I ask people to take notes on this if you're working early voting, because I want to take you through closing right now, because we're done with scenarios and all that. To close out a machine when you're ready to close it out, you'll hit a blue light back on the back, or a blue button. There's a blue light, and right around it is a blue button. When it comes up, it says close pose. You touch it and it wants a password to close it. That's different for early voting devices. Early voting devices, instead of close pose, it will say suspend pose, because you can't close early voting devices. You can only suspend them. So when you hit suspend, it's going to print out a short little tape with no results. It just says how many ballots got done. You still have to go through the closing motions Thursday, Friday, Saturday if you're working early voting. Remember I told you on the tapes from the print on demand, we want morning and evening. Same thing on your, over here, you want the morning tapes and evening tapes on your scanners and ADA machines. Now, election day is a little different. You touch that blue button, you say close pose. Mm-hmm. Yes, close the pose. It's asking you, put in your 6 ones for close and accept, and it will automatically print 3 tapes off for you on your scanners. Same thing over here, except one extra step that should be in the book. You hit the blue button on the back. And this printer's acting up and I'm not going to let me. And once you touch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the 6 ones, it then allows you to go to menu and then close pose, or menu suspend pose. And that's in the book when you're doing that. Except for suspend. It doesn't talk about suspend. Did that seem confusing or hard to you guys for closing? You hit the blue button, it comes up and either says suspend or close. You touch it, it says, are you sure? You say yes, you put your password in, and you're closed. It spits out your tapes. I don't want this to be miserable for you guys for 30 minutes. It shouldn't. You saw how quick that was. It doesn't
Was it the
take.
part of putting the machines back in the boxes and putting them back in the cage?
No,
It was this part.
it was getting them all shut down and all the papers printed out and the tags put back where they needed to be. Our group, or I had a terrible time. I did not feel very confident
Okay.
in doing it. And I read back through the book very slowly, one step at a time, and it did not work out like it was supposed to. We ended up getting it somehow, but we got everybody in the room involved, figuring it out. So I was just hoping that it had been upgraded, because it was the worst part of the day as far as I was concerned.
I can't tell you it's been updated because that's the first time we've ever had that.
Yeah.
But how many people's done this in the past? Have you all had any issues like this in closing? You have?
I think a lot of the issues was, last year, everything was new. We had not, I mean, we went through the training here, but it's nothing like doing it yourself. And you're very nervous because you don't want to do anything wrong or inaccurate. It's the end of the day, you're a clerk, you got everybody's votes in the machine, this is an important job. Judges are doing their things, and they struggled a little bit too. So we finally got one person to kind of say, okay, everybody, I'm gonna read the directions, and everybody do it at the same time. We figured we'd all do it wrong, or we'd all do it right.
And did it work?
We finally worked, but I think part of the problem was at the beginning, maybe we didn't either follow the instructions or understand them, like put the right things in the right
Order?
envelope, or, you know, there was just, somebody said, well, I use this envelope, well, I use this one. So I think it was just the newness, especially, and the directions. You make them sound,
Well,
when you read them, they're not.
well, let's don't confuse people with saying the closing instructions need. We're talking specifically the machine guide in closing down. They're step by step with illustrations. If you read it and you follow it, I don't know how you could really go wrong. That's different from putting things in the right envelopes and things like that.
Right.
I think just the combination, it was a long day, everybody was just a little on the edge, this was brand.
I agree. That's why I said you all had a long day, and it is a long day. But if you work together and one reads, one does, you're going to get the machines closed down properly. Now it's a little different when you get to where do the tapes go, right? Where do they go? So now you have a different sheet telling you where to put things, okay? Because like I said, you hit the button on the back, it says, are you sure? Yes, 6 ones. It closes, it prints tapes. It's going to print 3 tapes. You tear the tapes off. All 3, sign all 3 of them. One goes on the outside of the door, the other 2 go where? Back in the blue and white envelope where you put your opening post 0 tape. You get your pink verification form, validate the ending number on there, put it back in there. Where do those envelopes go when you're finished? Back in the red bag. So it's a step process, but make sure you're doing it one step at a time. Use your machine guide to close the machine down, and then you have a different guide. And we can't, my company prints these, we can't print these. We have to do them generic. Otherwise, there's 30 or 90 some counties that do this, and they all do it differently.
Oh.
So we have to keep this to, here's how you close it, here's how you open it, right?
On the sheets you have after the judges, I think we know it, but is it step by step like he's talking about? Just to make it.
Well, you had these last time.
Yeah, those are-
Now, whether or not you used them, that's a question and stuff. But at the evening, like on example is on the judges, after everyone's cast their ballots, it tells you what order to close the machines, which is in your guide. tape the results up on the window, put the green seal on, sign all forms. Judges are required to sign all the forms, and put them, and it says give all completed paperwork to the liaison to be put in the red bag. So everything's color coded. So the printer, everything that goes in the printer, all your printer tapes, each clerk station will have an envelope that has green writing on it. Again, it's got a green sticker on it. It's the green tab in your book. Everything's color coded. So if you put all of your, everything from your station in your green envelope, all your printer tapes from the morning and the afternoon, put your ballot accountability statements, put everything together and put it in the red bag. That's all you have, that's what you have to do. All your forms, any voter assistant forms, voter cards, all of your information that you have, all goes in the red bag.
May was my first time working, and I would just say that what added to the confusion at our site was, when we showed up, everything was still in the cage, and there was confusion as to who was setting up. So a lot of people stood back and waited for somebody to take charge. One person was in charge of helping getting all of them set up, which when you get ready to break down, you're not familiar with what was put in place.
That's why we're having additional clerk training those 2 days. So if you're a clerk and you want to know how to set up your area, that's why we're having that clerk training. Yes, and that's what we'll go over. Yeah, what it looks like when you get there, how you get it out of the cage, how you set it up, check in some voters, all of that good stuff, and then the takedown and put back up. Absolutely.
The only thing, but the physicalness of picking these up and trying to get them into the cage is very limited because not everybody is 25.
I'm not either.
So that was, I think, an issue. First of all, you're exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And some people can't physically do this. So that leaves a few people to do all the physical, which is really not fair either.
Well, unfortunately, I can't make the printers any lighter than they are.
No, I know that, but,
I don't know how we could fix that because you can't age discrimination of people to do certain jobs either.
no,
So
I know that, but, the year before, there was a team that came and did it and put it in the cage.
no, ma'am. No, ma'am. They did not.
They did not.
No, ma'am. Mm-mm. We have a road department that comes and picks up the actual cages, but they don't load the equipment in the cage.
I know that. I mean, that was last year, but it seemed like last year it was upon, all the clerks and everybody to do everything, except for roll the cage out.
No, we've never had anyone that comes in and packs everything back up for everyone. That I'm aware of, and Tab's been here 25 years, so it hasn't been I know for a fact in the last 3 elections, that has not been the case. Yes, sir.
You're gonna have a sheriff at every location.
Yes, sir.
And generally, they're more physically fit than a lot of us.
If you need assistance, I'm sure they would be glad to help.
They do what they will if you ask them.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Are you gonna be recording that additional,
I can't hear you.
Additional training.
recording that additional clerk training?
No. We don't have the ability to do that down there, like the equipment that we have here. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we'll go over that once we're done. So in case anybody needs to leave, I have the sign-in sheet here. So if you have questions, you can just come up and we'll go over that.
Send that out as well.
Yes, yeah,
Anyhow, to finish up my part,
yeah.
once
Let's
you've got all the
skip those.
tapes off here and you signed them, it doesn't matter if it's early voting and you get a short tape or it's a long tape from the election day. Turn the machine off in the back, you break the red seal, you pull the drive out, right? And put it in those respective envelopes. We have to have the drives from every machine. except for early voting, right? Election day, you do it. So we want the drives pulled out here for election day and the ADA as well. And then early voting, you just turn the machines off, lock them up, and leave the drives in there because they're responsible for getting the drives out from early voting equipment. Make sure your envelopes are put back in. Any forms that you filled out or used on election day, put them in that red envelope or that red bag. That way we have a complete picture of what happened on election day in there. All right. Any questions? If not, I'm through.
I just have a few things real quick. I will send, once this is edited and ready to be uploaded, I'll send the link out on that. I do have the detailed PowerPoint. If you got that, if you worked last election, where there was a detailed PowerPoint that kind of explained, you know, the cutoff dates for registering to vote, and if they didn't vote, you know, the dates of that could vote in their old county, things of that, step-by-step directions of what your responsibilities are under each one. If you're new and you feel overwhelmed, please don't be overwhelmed. You're going to have experienced people at each location that have done this over and over again that will be able to help you. Yeah, and you can, again, go to the liaison. The liaison will call us. We can walk them through whatever scenario is happening. There is a chance that there may be a statewide recount, so I may be reaching out to you again towards the end of November after the Thanksgiving holiday. If we have a statewide recount, we'll have to have poll workers to do that recount as well. Again, additional training for anyone that is a clerk. If you want to come up and sign up, I've got the days and the times up here. We have limited spots. There's, I think, 14 for each session, so we could get all the equipment because we have to put them all in training mode. So other than that, Ross, you don't have anything else? Thank you, everyone. Call me, email me. Yes, sir.
Do you have a guesstimate as to what the percentage of turnout will be?
I have not heard. I've heard anywhere from 15 to 25%, but I think it's a wild card. We've got a lot of absentees, but hard to say. No, I've got you down, Gary.